So this is just about finished, and I just wanted to talk about the way that the light, um, uh, the way that the light works, basically, because it's obvious that there's this light that's coming from over her right shoulder, but it's everything that's touched by the light, including the background. That is because often people will just focus on the main, what's obviously light, but everything about this is about light, including the background, including the way that I've got this, by the way, because I use these little cotton buds quite a bit, but just to take the edges off things. I'll show you in a minute. But essentially, the light is everything, and really that's what we're trying to capture. It's not just trying to capture the highlights, because that sort of the usual kind of subjects, the usual suspects, the highlights on the nose and the cheek and the where the bones are most sharp. That those areas are where the highlights are going to be in the light. But it's the other things. It's the other things that make it work as well. All of it are these varying degrees of sparkle, if you like, that actually create the light, and that really is the whole point of doing this. Trying to show how to capture the light of it. And you can see how it's basically caught all the structure of the light, the way the light creates the form. The danger for me is the photographic kind of treatment. I'm always a little bit wary of it becoming too photographic. You've seen that they just look like black and white photographs. That one, I still like it to feel like a drawing. When lean more towards, say, sergeant's charcoals or fetching charcoals or drawings or etchings, and I like it to feel more like that than it looking more like a photograph. So it's the more that I'm starting to tweak it now, and the more I'm starting to the subtle, because the guys that do the photographic stuff, it can be tiny marks and variations in tones that they spend. You can't see them because that's the whole point of it. You're not supposed to see the marks. But for me, that I just think it takes it a bit too far. I want to capture the light, and I feel the light in the drawing, but I don't want it to look like a photograph. And that's always, for me, always the sort of the signal to stop. Because I can go on and on and on, and all of a sudden it will start to look more photographic. The usual kind of infinite blend thing and all that. And but I want to see it. I want to see the blend. I want to see the marks that create the tonal values. I want to see those. It's that shoulder, for instance. I want to see that kind of thing, and because that for me is the point of me doing it. This is about the marks that I make. So so that's. I just thought I'd come back on and show you how it evolved, and what I'm doing now basically is I'm just adjusting the tones very slightly, just you can see how this tone here. Now one of the problems with working with monitors, by the way, is that it's an illuminated screen, so this is in effect projected light as opposed to reflected light. So invariably it's going to look a lot lighter on the screen, and within the darker areas you're going to see greater detail because of the illuminated background, and not always a good thing, because you can be almost creating a false effect, when really it's not that dark at all, or not that light at all, or the detail's not there. I just have to, as long as you're aware of it, I think that's all that matters. But as I said, screens are a bit of a bit misleading when it comes to doing this kind of thing. But as I've said before, if I could get a model to sit for me 3, 4, 5 times a day, then I'd use a live model. But she'd have to smile for an hour, or hold a pose, for an emotional pose for a given amount of time. Because I don't mind this kind of thing when it's clearly someone could just stand there and I could paint or draw them. But there's only so much staring that I can cope with. I like to see a bit more emotion in people's faces. So it's the live thing doesn't always work for me. As I say, not really had the opportunity that much, and that people will sit for me. I don't have the premises. It's just a little shed. So I can't really. No one could sit for me in here. So where would I do it? You know what I mean? And the whole logistics of doing all that it's out of my reach. So it's all right saying you should always draw from life, but there's a physical aspect to that most of us, unfortunately, don't have the luxury to be able to experience. So what I'm doing now is I'm adjusting all the tones to amplify, I suppose, the way the light's working with the shapes. But I'd be careful not to lose too much of the rawness, the drawing element of it. Otherwise, it will just, as I say, disappear into a photo replication sort of thing. I don't want that. Yeah, cotton buds are probably the nearest thing to a stump that I use. I can't apply any pressure on them, and most of the time when I use a knife to make the end of it really floppy, and then all I can do with that is just take off the surface of things. So it would just take off the surface, you can hardly see what it does, but it's just enough to kill the tone when the tones are out of balance. That's all it is. Yeah, so that's it. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, and it was helpful in some way that and you might think about things. I think the light thing for me is always, if you look at any of the drawings, it's always about the light. And if you don't have an image that's got lots going on like that, lots of light structure in there, you know what I mean, the face or the subject. I would always fiddle with it in Photoshop. Most of the images that I use have been through Photoshop to increase. I increase the levels of everything. So that's contrast and colour density and chroma and all that sort of, everything gets increased. Generally it's unnoticeable as being more contrasty, so so it just gives me something to draw. That sometimes when I do that with the images and I put them in the members area, people will say they're too dark, they can't see. But the point of doing it is to, they can't see the detail. The point of doing it is to increase the visibility of the shapes that define the face. That's the whole point. It's just it's a bit like, I also take them out of focus sometimes as well. But it's the purpose is so you can see the shapes better, so I can see the shapes better. And if I'm drawing something and it starts to get a little flat, I'll take the image and then I'll put it into Photoshop and then increase the levels to a point where it's almost all black, but it then shows me the actual shapes that matter. In terms of the light, there is a dark shape. Now if I increase the darkness of this image, all of that would go really dark, but it'd still be visible for what it is. So, and that's the thing with when I convert them into when I increase the levels, is it's that moment before it becomes too dark to be able to see that I'm interested in. So invariably the images I use are almost always high contrast, for want of a better description. It's a bit more than contrast, but it's, if you want it simply, it is just a high contrast image, but it just helps me see the light better, and that's all I'm focusing on. Yeah, so I'm gonna just keep tinkering, I think, and but I think it's done. There are things that I'd just like to tighten up and make a little bit more precise, but generally speaking, I think it's fine. It's fine. So, right, I will catch you later. I'm going to be back on just doing a sorry, I just needed to kill that a little bit. It's not quite as light as that. Yeah, just doing I don't know what yet. This image and the other images from yesterday are all on the in the members area, by the way. So if you want to have a go yourself.